Check it out. Let me tell you one.
Freedom for all!
What is up, my MMA brothers and sisters? Welcome to episode 13 of Let's Talk MMA. I have a special guest today. We're going to be talking about UFC 210. Obviously, the headliner of DC versus Rumble Part 2. We got Weidman and Mousasi, which I'm super excited about. And then we also have Cynthia Calvillo, who's in my neck of the woods, who's making some big waves. Second time fighting in UFC, second time in a main card pay-per-view for the UFC. So great blessings, looking for great things on her fight. And my special guest, I have Kayla from, well, she calls herself, which I agree, professional FanGirl. Now, this girl is a true MMA fan. Now, I'm a big MMA fan as myself. That's a whole reason why I even started this channel. And the biggest thing I like to do, watch fights, talk MMA. She's exactly doing that. She has a YouTube channel as well. So we're going to get to know her, and we're going to talk about UFC 210. So without further ado, let's get this started. Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you?
What's up, Kayla? Oh, I love the peace sign.
When I started FanGirl, I used to do like a current news Snapchat, and that was always my sign off.
No way.
So I like that you incorporate that.
You know, and I actually do it a lot too, and I kind of wanted it to be something recognizable because I just think everybody knows it and everybody should do it often. Peace for the world.
Universal, yeah, sign there.
Well, Kayla, we actually just met, but I gave you a little intro about your Instagram page, your YouTube channel, and one thing, since it's our first time kind of meeting, that I like to do is go back. One of the biggest and pleasant surprises is that you're a female. You know, obviously most people probably don't see female in MMA or cage fighting or the whatever box that they want to put it in, but there's obviously plenty of MMA fighters and there's plenty of MMA female fans, and you seem to be one of the big top ones. So why don't you tell us about MMA, how it's a passion of yours, and how you kind of got all this started?
Yeah, sure. So I've always wanted to be a reporter since, as long as I can remember, since I was little. I remember watching, there's this movie called Brenda Starr with Brooke Shields where she was like an investigative reporter, but she always looked really chic and pretty, and she could kick butt. And same thing with like Charlie's Angels. Like they were always, you know, fighting, or not fighting crime, I guess, solving, you know, mysteries or whatever, but
Sure.
also could kick butt. But were these beautiful girls. So I don't know if that's kind of where I got my first start with the love or passion for MMA. But growing up, you know, a lot of the men in my family, my sister kind of played around with it a little bit too, and I did as well with martial arts, but everyone was always involved with martial arts. So I dated a few martial artists. I always had it just involved in my life. And so one of my boyfriends, he really got into MMA like around early 2000. Okay. So we started watching pay-per-views, fights all the time. Strikeforce, Gina Carano. I remember watching the first season of The Ultimate Fighter and,
Yes.
you know, the Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner fight. And so I became such a huge fan. And so I remember like his family, we would order all the big pay-per-views. And most of the women in his family would watch like the main event or the main card, but then they'd eventually like go off to the kitchen and go have a drink or, you know, go do something else. And I was always right there with the guys watching like every single fight, so into it.
Wow.
Like, wow, Kayla, maybe you should, you know, be a ring girl or something like that, get involved in it that way. And I'm like, I don't want to be a ring girl. I want Joe Rogan's job. Like, that's when he was still doing the pre and post fight interviews.
You want to talk about the fights.
Yeah. And I mean, no shade thrown at ring girls. Obviously,
Sure.
They play a big role in it too. But so fast forward to now, when I first moved to Hollywood, I didn't really know how to break into that world of MMA because kind of like you're saying, I think people's mindsets are changing. It's still fairly new just to even, one, have women fighting, but then also kind of getting more of a perspective from a women's point of view
Sure.
on the sport. So I wasn't really sure how to break into it, but, you know, within this last year, I've kind of reevaluated life completely and said, you know, this is a sport I'm passionate about, and I think that there's really an opportunity now for me to report on it. So I started FanGirl MMA kind of with that mindset of, I'm getting back into the sport to where I'm following like so strongly and so passionate about it. So I almost want to not only just be there for female fans, but for new fans too. Like, let's kind of learn about the sport that's been evolving and grown so much now together. And I really like, to interact with a lot of my following that I'm building. I have people from all over the world that I'm direct messaging where we're like, did you catch that last fight?
Right.
That knockout was crazy. So it's been really great. And I actually am going to be reporting for my first event in Las Vegas next month with Real MMA.
No way.
So
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing about it that I've always looked into. It's like I'm so passionate about it. I'm following it as it is. And at first I was like, well, let me put the camera on and put the microphone and let's see if I even like it. Because, you got to enjoy the work, too, because it's definitely work, not just play. But, I mean, those things kind of go together. You're obviously a natural in front of a camera, it seems. I've gotten some compliments, so I feel, comfortable doing it. And that's the thing. When it's driven by passion, whatever people's individual passions are, you should follow them. And when I saw your page, I was like, I obviously saw you doing things that I was doing, but it was refreshing to see a female do it because there's not enough of females kind of doing the reporting or throwing it out there. So what you're doing, I think, is very important, and people obviously like it. So that's fantastic.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kayla, let's talk MMA. UFC 210
right.
is coming not this weekend, but next weekend, so pretty soon. We're going to talk about the top 3 fights, and if you like, you can play this little game that I typically like to play, and it's who you going for and who do you think is going to win, assuming they might be different, but just keep it in mind, because I always know that you might feel strongly, hey, this person's going to win, and this is why, but I'm rooting for this guy or girl. So if that's a conflict you have, feel free to separate the two. But let's go ahead and start talking about Cynthia Calvillo and Pearl Gonzalez. And what's interesting for me is Cynthia, being from my neck of the woods, Alpha Male is about an hour from where I am in Sacramento. And so I've kind of seen her, and going into her debut, which was UFC 209 against Amanda Cooper, huge opportunity. She was supposed to be on the prelim. Then she got bumped up to the main card, wins in a great submission. And now we have a newcomer, Pearl Gonzalez, who is 6-1. You looked into it. Please share what information you got. So interesting matchup. What do you think of this fight?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really great point that you mentioned. Obviously, the UFC or somebody is thinking very highly of Cynthia because with her debut and then this next fight, she's on the main card, and they're huge pay-per-views. Everyone knew that 209 and 210 with the main event and even co-main events in those were huge fights. So I think that's so cool. And I think I had shared with you too, I had read something about her being the #1 ranked amateur fighter in California for a couple of years, obviously before she made her pro debut. So I'm really excited about this one. I think, from what I've learned about Pearl Gonzalez, she was on a 6-fight win streak before she's about to debut into the UFC. So obviously both these girls are going to bring some cool stuff to the table, and they just have such a great opportunity that's really when you see fighters shine, is when they know they have a lot on the line. So I think that this, I won't say that I think it'll be fight of the night, but I definitely think it's going to be one that people are talking about for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and what I noticed, I did see one fight from Pearl, a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of grappling, and that's actually what got me excited once I saw that, because Cynthia obviously had her amazing grappling displayed on her fight. Stand-up wise, you can kind of tell maybe both of them, that's not their most comfortable. So it's almost like a fairly good matchup for the two, and winner moves up to the ranks and goes on to, I was looking at the rankings as well, and I think she's not, Cynthia anyways, isn't ranked yet. She's obviously brand new, but I almost feel like if they're pushing her this much, a win here, who knows? That could be a Paige Van Zandt, that could be a Carla Esparza, getting into these names, and then Cynthia, besides being on these 2 main cards, she's on the fast track.
And if she can give us exciting finishes like she did with Amanda Cooper, those are the fighters that they are going to keep pushing. How great of a story would it be with her and Paige Van Zandt, especially since they're both from your neck of the woods? Right there, that's a storyline too that you got.
You were absolutely right. And Paige not being an alpha male anymore, just kind of like a good old Cody and TJ kind of rivalry. We like storylines, so I'm rooting for her. She's obviously in my neck of the woods. It seems like it's going to be a good fight. I mean, I won't pressure you on choosing, but looking at this fight, I mean, what do you kind of see happening?
I don't know why I always go for the person that's making their debut. Okay. And I know that's a little, gutsy or whatever and taking a chance there, but I just think they have so much to prove. They know that this is a huge opportunity that usually they step up. It is hard because, like you said, I would love to see Cynthia, continue her story too, but I think I'm going to go for Pearl.
Oh, well, I usually put on some goofy dollar bets here, so we can just make imaginary bets here. I'm going for Cynthia, so I'm glad you're going with the other. But kind of like what you said, I kind of agree with the whole debut thing. I think it's true, just kind of like Cynthia. She knew the opportunity was in front of her. She was focused, and you could just tell. She was comfortable, and she just made it happen versus Amanda Cooper, who did the tough show. I mean, she's got plenty of experience, and boom, she got finished in the first round. But I think with Pearl, it's one of those things that can happen, but also the opposite could happen. The lights, she's on the main card. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Cynthia was able to handle it. Pearl, I don't know. That'll be the question. So either way, I think there's a lot of good points. That's always the great thing about MMA and talking about it. Neither of us know, but there's a lot of questions to be answered, right?
For sure.
Let's move on to the next fight, and this is probably my most excited that I am of all these fights on this card. Chris Weidman and Gegard Mousasi. And the reasons why I'm so excited is I'm a huge Mousasi fan. I've been seeing him forever. I think he should have a bigger name, but he's got a good spot, good opportunity here. Chris Weidman, obviously well-rounded. Obviously, he's one of the best. And what excites me the most is his recent Instagram pictures where he is just looking amazing. Like, he's just ripped. You could just tell he's trained like crazy. So what are your thoughts on this fight?
So this fight, again, there's so much on the line, right?
Yes.
And especially for Chris Weidman. He's coming off of the two losses that he had. I personally think he looked really great at UFC 205 against UL.
Yep.
I was like, wow, he's coming back. I followed his career a little bit, but especially with that fight, I was kind of researching all of the UFC 205 card.
Yeah. And
some people had their doubts with him, but he looked really good. It's just that he was going against Yoel Romero. Like, oh my gosh. That's a hard fight right there. But yeah, I didn't realize that Mousasi had been around that long and had that many fights. So I think what's just so cool is here's two fighters that have been around, that are veterans of the sport. I think what's also really interesting is Mousasi's kind of on a run. They said this is one of his more significant stretches that he's had.
Right.
So I personally think that his mental game is just really strong right now too. And he's come out and saying interviews, obviously there's some stuff going on with the title belt. People aren't that excited that GSP is returning, straight for that spot. I personally am, just because he's my favorite fighter. He was the one that I was watching when I first got into it, like I was explaining earlier.
For sure.
But what's cool about this is I think, obviously the UFC with this new purchase with WME, it seems like they're kind of focusing on a lot of like storylines too, obviously building up these fights to get more views and money. But what will be really cool is, depending on who wins this fight, a lot of people are wondering if GSP, if say he does win that title, if he's just going to vacate the title or not.
Right.
I kind of see them, I feel like Yoel will get that next title shot, but maybe whoever wins this fight will go against Jacare Souza. And that kind of will be a cool, interesting match too, because he's been around for so long.
So I feel like... Did you hear about Jacare? Sorry to interrupt you, but did you hear about Jacare talking about retirement because he's getting tired of waiting? And exactly what you're talking about. I mean, that just breaks my heart.
It does. I know. I made a video about it too, where I was just like, oh my gosh, I really hope he doesn't. He says he's still passionate about the sport, but at the same time, people that have been following the sport and following him for a long time knows that he deserves a title shot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think they'll probably give it to Yoel first, but I could see whoever wins this fight that they are going to build some sort of storyline with that. But back to this fight, I assume you're going to go for Mousasi then, since you said you're such a big fan.
I am. I think I am. Well, ultimately with Mousasi, I have seen him a while, but ultimately, even just I mean, Chris Weidman has definitely chances to win this, and the way I kind of see it is just like what you said with Yoel. Like he looked great, and if he only looks better than that now, which I think he would, this is his second fight after his surgery and all of that.
Right.
If he could take down Mousasi and kind of play that game, I think he has decent chances here. But Mousasi's kind of dangerous on the stand-up. I don't see Weidman doing it there. If Mousasi ends up taking him down, I think he could keep him down. Like, I don't know. It's so intriguing, and that's why I love it so much, because I am a Weidman fan. Don't get me wrong. I love the guy, but I just think Mousasi is going to take this one. I really do. And who are you picking?
So, as much as I love both of them, and I think that was what I read with most people's advice, is kind of just sit back and watch this fight, because it's really hard to choose both, but something tells me that Mousasi's probably going to take it. Yeah, I just think he's on a run right now, and kind of, not that Chris Weidman doesn't have his eye on the prize. Obviously, he wants to get back to a shot at that title, but I don't know. I think this is going to be a hard fight for him, and I just feel like Mousasi's going to take it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but Chris Weidman looks like he's definitely preparing for it, like beyond any other fight. Like, it's the fight of his life. Gegard, he knows he can't. It's like with Gegard, he was actually going to be in this conversation a long time ago, but if you recall, he lost to Uriah Hall with that spinning back kick.
Right.
And then that's where he kind of was complaining a lot, because it was like, yeah, he lost, but then they just kind of like, he had to work so hard just to get to this point again. So losing would be devastating. Like Chris Weidman, he could probably get right back up there. His name is big enough.
Another good thing that we didn't mention too is he is fighting in New York. Something about being in your hometown and having the fans maybe on your side, maybe that'll kind of win him over. Obviously, it wasn't as helpful at 5, but yeah, I think he has that. And then the other point I was going to make too was just that, like we said with the previous fight, I don't want to say he has more on the line, because you just had mentioned too, Gegard has a lot on the line as well, but I do think that there's a little bit more pressure on Chris Weidman to at least not get 3 losses in a row, because we know that's never good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's just he's up there and the big name. Yeah, 3 losses just is never a good look, and Mousasi is on the winning kind of edge. So either way, I guess we'll see. But if we were going to choose, you're going with Mousasi.
I am, yeah.
I am too. But hey, we shall see. We shall see. So the main event, and again,
oh my God,
this one's tricky. I'm going to be very curious to see what you say. But I'll say this: I'm going for DC. My heart goes out to him. Again, I'm originally from San Jose. AKA is in my backyard, so I just gravitate to that. I feel his chances are very good in the long run. You know, it's 5 rounds. Beyond the 3rd round, I don't see Rumble winning it. But for whatever reason, though, I'm really scared about those first 3 rounds, and I kind of feel that Johnson, I don't know, that chance is just so high with that right hand. How do you see it? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, just even talking about it gets me like anxious. We're not even in the octagon.
The bigger the question mark, the funner it is.
Well, you know what's funny is, knowing that we were going to do this today, I actually rewatched that fight last night. And I had known that it had been a while since they were trying to get this rematch back. But what I thought was hilarious is that first fight was pre-Reebok. They had all of their stuff, their flyer or the poster in the back, and I'm like, wow, it actually has been a minute, because obviously there's been a lot of fights since Reebok. But yeah, watching that first fight, the first round was very evenly matched. I mean, Johnson clipped him a few times where you thought, oh my gosh, he's for sure. Yeah, that's it. And then, DC though was just, I can't believe that he had so much power and control over someone like, Rumble Johnson. But yeah, you made a good point. Obviously, going into the 2nd round, Anthony Rumble Johnson just was so tired and so gassed. So I think going into this, what makes me really excited for this fight is they were both very tested, in that first fight. In 2 different
ways, yeah.
In 2 different ways. Now they both kind of know what they're dealing with. I know that they both have definitely went into it and probably going to be more technical with this fight. I love too, I feel like Anthony Rumble Johnson just has such a good team of coaches. If you rewatch the first fight, listen to what they're telling him, going into the second round.
Right.
His coaches just have, I feel like, again, I always go with the mental game. I think his mental game is really strong right now because he himself is coming off of a few, I think 3 KOs.
Yeah,
so
and that feels good.
It feels good. There's just this look in his eye this time, in press, interviews and press conferences where I kind of think that he might take it. And I love DC too. I love both. I think they're both such gentlemen. I loved how he put the belt on DC last time. I love DC's backstory and everything he's been through with his life. I think he's been a great champion. I think he's been great as far as even, the FS1 broadcast.
Commentating. He's a great commentator. Yep.
Yeah. So it's so hard to choose between these two, but I don't know why. I just think that Rumble Johnson might take it. And another good point too is I almost feel, I wonder if DC's had enough time to recover from his injury, because I feel like the UFC might be kind of pushing this fight to happen a little sooner than it should, because obviously we know John Jones is coming back in July.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you actually mentioned that. Because there's so many, I feel like there's more variables talking about this fight this time than there was last time. Like last time, I feel like they're both in good condition, and that's what made for a great fight both ways. This time around, and like you said, it was so long ago that was when DC got the belt, and I think he was in good shape. He ended up taking out Gustafsson. He had that good little run, but then he had so much time because of the John Jones thing, and then it fell through. He hasn't been in there for so long. He's been the champion.
Yeah.
And Johnson, on the other hand, he was actually training for John Jones when he fought DC. So it kind of made some sense that maybe his wrestling cardio or technique wasn't quite on point. Come around this time, he knows that that's going to be his weak spot. And if he could be well prepared on the wrestling front, which he was originally a wrestler when he was growing up and everything like that. So I feel like this one's just going to go different. Yet the same. I don't know. I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, I think too, just even watching it myself, so I can only imagine with him and his coaches rewatching that fight, seeing his face, and it was funny. I even heard Joe Rogan commentate in the second round, like, that's not a good sign. He's breathing with his full mouth open. He has that scared look in his eye. So after he watched that first fight or experienced that first fight, that he's like, this rematch, I'm getting my wrestling in. I'm getting all of that, training in. And yeah, I just think that's such a good point too. There's so many variables into play, and I do see that what I believe is if he's going to win, it's definitely going to be in that first or second round. I think he's going to keep his distance, obviously, to defend the takedown. But then when I was looking at their stats too, their takedown and striking percentage off of the UFC, UFC.com, it's pretty similar too. So I think he does usually have pretty good takedown defense. It's just that it's Daniel Cormier.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that if he keeps his distance and then just goes for that KO when he sees it, I kind of see that happening. But like you said, if it goes into the third round, I think it's DC's fight for sure.
Yeah, because wrestling is it just takes so much. I remember when Eddie Alvarez was talking just in fighting in general, and he would say, like, if you're going to wrestle in a 5-round fight, I think he said, like, you're going to wrestle for 2 rounds, maybe 3, because if you're going to wrestle all 5 or if you're going to wrestle a lot, you're just going to be exhausted. It's just too much compared to standing there. And I think Johnson probably figured, you know what? John Jones ain't going to take me down. I'm going to be standing. If I could stand up for 5 rounds, I'll be good. So with this one, I know he's taking it serious. Hopefully DC with his surgery and coming back and kind of a lot of time off from being in the octagon, hopefully doesn't hurt him. So we shall see.
The same thing. I don't want to see him get laid out.
No, but it's so possible. I mean, even if he went in there 100%, that's what's crazy. Anthony Johnson's right hand can lay out anybody. So that's always the possibility. And it almost happened last time. Right.
Now, I want to bring up one, factor into play too, and I want to get your opinion on it.
Sure.
This is another fight in New York. And obviously, I think, what is it, the 4th fight in New York that they've had since it's been?
Probably the 4th, I would say.
I think it's like the 3rd or 4th. Yeah, maybe the 3rd. But what's interesting is, we talked about the first 3. I don't really know which ones I'd see maybe going to decision. Maybe the Cynthia and Pearl, maybe even Weidman and Saucy. But what's interesting is with that last Holly Holm and Jermaine fight, it going to decision, what was the issue with the ref?
Right. Well, I get what you're saying. So basically, you think you have those concerns?
Well, yeah, because, a lot of these, few fights that we've had in New York, a lot of complaints have been going around as far as like, hey, they're not able to choose the refs. And I feel like for a fight like Cormier and Johnson and, even the co-main event, we do want someone like Big John McCarthy in there or Herb Dean or somebody. So I'm very curious to hear your opinion on like.
That's a very good point.
I think that'll play into it as far as the refing.
What I'm hoping, I guess, now that you bring it up, because I wasn't even thinking about that, but I think that's a serious thing that they need to consider. I mean, at the very least, because I'm all for, if there's referees that they have, and obviously they need to get experience, whatever, and if maybe they're in the prelims and whatnot, I mean, that's one way. But for these big fights, especially if there's a belt on the line, you gotta have Herb Dean. You gotta have, just any of these bigger guys. And I don't know what the logistics are on that, but I think it's a must. That last event was a disaster.
And just for the safety of the fighters too, when you have someone like Rumble Johnson that can knock you out, you want to make sure that the ref is going to stop it as soon as he's out and not, get too much damage too. Oh
my gosh, the fight with BJ Penn and Yair Rodriguez?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I actually did a video on that. Unfortunately, I don't know how, but they flagged it down and they copyrighted me, so I had to take it down. But I actually did a reaction to that video, and at the end, as it was happening, I was like, Big John McCarthy, you are a genius. Just because he stopped it in, I think, a good way. Like, if he stopped it right when maybe a lot of people think you should have, maybe it would have been too early. I think he stopped it right around the time. He gave him plenty of chances, and it just didn't happen. And that was the expertise. That was a perfect example of someone who just knows. He's done it forever. And you got to have them in there. If there's a belt on the line, it's very important. So, yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I'll have to look out when we watch the event. Hopefully there's no funny business.
I know, I'm hoping so, but either way, it's gonna be. I know that this card, for whatever reason, I don't want to say that it didn't get as much attention, but obviously UFC 211, which is coming up, it's so stacked. But the more that I looked into this, and then after watching that first fight again, I'm actually really pumped and excited for this. So I'm glad we had this talk, just because it reminded me that it's such a great card.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, and maybe you'll agree with me. I honestly feel like when I first started talking with fighters, my one of my goals was like, a lot of these up and comers, nobody really wants to interview them or whatever, and I'm like, I'll interview them. For me, they're a big deal. They're going through this journey. Eventually they're going to make it to the bigger shows and all of that, but at least I want to try to help them out. And same thing with this. Like, these are amazing fights, and it's like there's hardcore MMA fans just like us that are super excited for it, but it's almost like we also feed into the bigger populace of people. If they get excited about it, then we're super excited about it. So I kind of like doing it to throw it out there. Like, these guys deserve way more. Obviously the sport is growing, but I'd like to think that it's because people like us who keep more people engaged in the sport, because these are some of the best athletes that we can see perform.
I totally agree. And yeah, like, I want to say thank you for putting on your show and having all of your social media and stuff too. And it's interesting. People love when someone's, made it to the top, like a Conor McGregor. Everyone wants to know his backstory all of a sudden, and they want to do all of these, like, making of the fighter kind of type shows. But how nice is it to get genuine, raw interviews and all of that in the moment when they're actually on their journey growing up, to be however successful that they are.
Right.
So yeah, I'm all about, reaching out to those fighters that are kind of not as well known, because those are the really exciting ones to watch. They're the new face of the sport that are coming up. So
that's it. Well, I got to give you a big thank you for coming on to this show. I mean, one of my favorite parts of doing this not only is to meet new people and all of that, but my favorite friends are people that can speak MMA with me. So this is one of the funnest things. I bet you know what I'm talking about. So whether it's comments in the YouTube or the Instagram or doing these and being able to talk MMA, I think we both share the passion for the sport, and that's exactly why we do what we do. So Kayla, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we could do it again soon, and I'll put all of your information on the video and all of that in the description so everybody knows how to find you. And much success to everything that you got going.
All right, well, much success to you as well, and thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back, and yeah, we'll definitely chat after UFC 210 to see who won our bet.
Yes, I know. We got some fake dollars on it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Kayla. Until next time, I will talk to you very soon.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Right, bye-bye. All right, everybody, that was Kayla. She is the professional fangirl, and if you go take a look at her Instagram, you can check her out on YouTube. She is obviously got a passion for MMA just like me, so I was very excited to get to know her, kind of get an idea of her side, how she kind of got into it, and it's fun. For me, this is fun. I love talking MMA, so let's hear from you guys. Let's hear in the comments who are you guys going for. What are you most excited about of UFC 210? And until next time, peace.